And welcome to Kramer's Corner Daily Technical Update. It is Wednesday, the 9th of April, and this is an educational video. There's no recommendation or advice intended whatsoever. This is only how I read the charts from a technical point of view, and this is also to demonstrate how you can use it and draw trend lines and read the indicators and such. Today we'll start with Apple that got hit badly yesterday. Amongst the Max 7, it was actually hardest hit, down around 3.5%, a new low here. As we can see here on the weekly, it is below 178 support and could dip down to 164. That will be a key support. If it moves back below that level and closes below, well, then there is further downside potential, with the potential down to 150 and possibly lower down to this consolidation area here around 140, 150, and maybe even lower. Negative sentiment on the RSI on weekly and also on daily. There's no divergence indicating lower levels for Apple. Moving on to the broader indices, we have S&P 500 that turned sour again yesterday. Negative sentiment, no divergence indicating likely lower levels. Weekly dancing around the 49.53, but extremely volatile here. We could see lower levels today, but here pre-market we are only down a little bit further. We haven't taken out the last lows there at 4,800. But there is potential down, so we could see it dipping down to 4,600. And if it does, I think that will be at least short term an exhaustive move, and then I think we'll see a nice bounce. Just from a purely technical point of view, of course, something else can come out that will completely wreck that picture. On the Nasdaq 100, no divergence, as we can see here. This is also lower levels on RSI, so indicating lower levels, and we could see Nasdaq 100 down to 16,250, maybe dipping below 16,000 here. Pre-market, we can see it trading lower, but not taking out the low here from the 7th. So around 16,000 is not unlikely at all, maybe dipping down to the 200 weekly moving average, and then I think we will see an exhaustive move, and maybe some traders will come in and think, okay, now it's been too much. Dow Jones closed just around 37,611. Support there, and also pre-market, let's have a look at almost taking out the previous lows here, 36,483, and there is not much stronger support until where we have the 200 weekly moving average and 35,684. In Asia this morning, we had Seng that opened below 19,664 support, but closed well above and also back above the 200 daily moving average. There's no divergence, so we could see there's a risk that we could push lower below 19,000 to this region around 18,670 and change. But it will, of course, require it takes out the lows from this morning here at 19,260. So let's keep an eye on this level. So if it starts moving back below the support line there, then I think we'll see a push lower. On the European markets that had a nice bounce yesterday, but if we look at the pre-market, well, it is set to open lower, but it hasn't taken out the 45.09 low here, just above a key support here at 44.90, around that level. We could see it being challenged this morning. It has gotten not good news that's coming out from US at the moment, so it's not comforting for the markets at all. However, I think I still believe we are in exhaustive mode, but we could maybe also see it dipping down to this 43.80 level, where we also have the 200 weekly moving average coming up, giving some support. Again, we are crazy times, and there are extreme volatility. We have the DAX 100, very strong bounce yesterday. We got up to the 38.2 retracement, but here pre-market It is turning sour again, so we are set to open about 0.6% lower. We could challenge the support down here, 18,800. Let's see about if it takes out that, well, then that could really hurt the market even more. We are RSI extremes below 25, almost down at 20. So we could see a bounce, but again, there's no divergence indicating possibly lower levels. Euro dollar still in an uptrend, pushing higher, and I still believe that we will see it pushing towards 112, 112.75, where we have a fairly strong resistance. We have a strong resistance around 412, but there's potential higher, and the 412.75 comes from this one here. It is not the strongest resistance, to be honest. I think the strongest resistance is up here around just below 115. It is pushing higher, and it seems to be pushing higher as we speak. Sterling dollar test the 127.15 we talked about yesterday, and is bouncing now, bouncing off the 40 threshold here on the RSI. So I think we maybe could see it resuming uptrend. If it starts moving back at 120, about 129, then I think we'll be resuming uptrend on sterling dollar. Euro sterling testing 86.20. Resistance. We have this resistance area here, 86.25, 86.45. There's some strong resistance, and maybe it needs to take a breather, and we could see a little bit of a correction. I don't expect a big one, but nevertheless a possible correction from around current levels, maybe spiking a little bit higher before it occurs, and maybe setting back to 85.5 and 85 and a bit. However, if it takes out 86.45, then, well, there's not much resistance until around 87.65. Yen pairs again on the move this morning, and let's zoom in a little bit more here. We can see what's going on. So it reached the 50% of this downtrend here, which is a bit unusual in FX market. Usually goes to 61 at least, sometimes 786, but this 50%, we talked about yesterday, it could do that, and now resume downtrend. I think it will push lower. So what I will do, I'll remove this one, and I think it will push lower towards the 161.8, and also down to 142, 143, 142.90, 143 level. We can see here on the weekly negative sentiment, bearish trend. There is medium-term potential down to around 140.25. The Euro yen has been very frustrating of late. I will still say for now, I will wait for a breakout either to the downside at 158.25 or to the upside 164.20. I know it is a really wide range, but for now it seems like it can't really make up its mind, of course, due to the movement in yen and due to the move in euro. So it's really spelling out here on euro yen. So it's really it is with a downside undertone, because we're all moving averages are in declining. There is positive sentiment on the RSI, but again, at the moment I trust the moving average a little bit more. The Aussie yen dipped a little bit lower this morning. I'm not quite sure this was low, but we actually touched 86, just almost 86 here, and that's a very strong support. So maybe we'll see a bounce here in the coming days. But keep an eye. If it takes out 86, well, then we could see push lower towards towards 80 level. But we're not going there anytime soon, I believe. But I expect a correction really. Sterling yen also being pushed lower, really being pushed lower here, 186. And if we're zooming in on the weekly, there's not much strong support until around 183.75. But keep an eye on if it starts moving, bouncing from here. It seems a little bit extreme at the moment. I would add Fibonacci to this one and then say, okay, where could it bounce to? Could possibly up to around 189.60 level. Aussie dollar seems to be bouncing after dipping below 60, which was a support, actually dipping almost all the way down to 59.13, and bouncing this early morning. Could be a bounce that continues up to 61, which is a 38.2 retracement of this sell-off here. However, if it takes out the lows from this morning, then expect a push down to around 58. The dollar Canada, well, turning sour again here, and I think we are in for another push towards 140, possibly down to 139.25 support area. We are negative sentiment on the RSI, likely to push lower. The sterling Canada, that is bouncing off the 61.8 retracement here, and I think it could bounce up to around 183.75, 184 possibly, but we are in a bearish trade. Lower low, lower high, lower low, and should we get a new lower high and then another move lower, because the negative sentiment on the RSI is still there and indicating lower levels. Euro-Swiss that got sold off heavily the past week or so, seems to be bouncing from around 92.65, just above the support here at 92.55. You can see the support here on the weekly, which is key. Very strong support in this region down here, and now we are bouncing. We could bounce up to the 94 level, which is around the 38.2 retracement. However, if it takes out the lows from this morning at 92.65, well, then we are looking at 92 flat. The dollar Swiss pushed lower this morning once again, and I think actually that will continue, but I will still add this little Fibonacci here saying, okay, we could see a bounce up to 65.50, but I actually think we'll push lower here in the coming days. Also given that we are seeing a euro dollar picking up pace again towards higher levels, and if it takes out 83.75, well, then we have to go really far back to see where do we have something on dollar Swiss, really far back. We haven't seen this since, well, these levels since 2015. That's really heavy. There's a little bit here, of course, at 83.30, that should be observed. That's what we could be looking at, that lows down here. Maybe that could be an exhaustive move. The dollar index also pushing lower, and if it takes out 101, well, then we could be looking at 100 levels down here. So we are back to the to Q3 last year, so around 100 here. So really a glorious collapse in also the dollar index. Gold is bouncing off the 29.55 support and the 61.8 retracement, and seems to be forming at the bottom and reversal pattern. We have this negative candle here, then we had the doji yesterday, and then possibly bullish candle today. So if we do get that, a positive candle, a bullish candle ending the day, well, then we can say, okay, we will probably have a new move higher, and it could take out the previous high and a push towards 32.48, which is 138.2 projection of this correction here. Short term, I only believe that we get up to around 387, maybe 31.22. But if it takes out the lows here at 29.55, well, then we could see a push down to 28.80. On silver also in a fairly strong bouncing mode, but not that strong. Still below the 38.2 retracement and resistance here at 30s, but 80. If it takes out that, well, then I think we can see a push up to 32.20. However, if it takes out the lows here from a few days ago at 28.30, well, then there's potential down to around 26.43. Copper also extremely volatile. This morning here, it is very close to testing the lows here at 4.3. If it takes out that, well, could be just a little dip to see if it could trigger some stops around 400, and then maybe push down to 390 and then bounce. So let's see if it can start moving higher here. I think we short term are very close to, if we haven't seen a low here, but I don't have a bottom reversal pattern. There's still no divergence on the RSI indicating we could see a new low, but so be cautious if you're trading copper. Crude oil and WTI, and I think we need to look at the weekly chart. We can see what's going on. We have tested the lows here, just below 58, as we can see, comes all the way back from here. If it takes out that, well, then there's a little bit support in this region around 51.5. The stronger one down here, all the way down at 43, 44. I'm not quite sure we'll get down there yet, but it looks very heavy. However, on the daily chart, we can see it spiked lower and now bouncing. Could that be it? Could that be it? If so, and we get a bullish candle down here, and again tomorrow, then we could see a bounce up to 62.60, possibly a little bit higher. But let's see, still negative sentiment on the RSI, no divergence, indicating we could see lower levels. The same on the weekly, we could push lower in the coming weeks. The Brent Crude oil slipped lower this morning. Currently just forming a little bit of a doji there. We are at a stream, we are at almost down at 20 on the RSI as negative sentiment. So, but it doesn't mean that it will turn around. It's just mean we are a little bit of an extreme here, but there's no divergence indicated. We could also see lower levels, and here we can also see that on weekly we touched, I think we touched almost, well, 60.15, so very close to the key support here at 60. There is risk lower if it takes out the lows and push below 60. Well, then we are looking at levels down in the 55 region. On the Dutch TTF or European gas, excuse me, touched the lows here from the 7th and is bouncing a little bit. So maybe we could see a bounce a little bit higher, but if it takes out 33.50, well, then there is next one is 32, possibly lower. The Henry Hub US Nat Gas, little bit of support here around 340 could be tested. Negative sentiment on the RSI indicating lower levels. Could even take out. This is not the strongest support. There's not really much strong support until around $3. Really, I'm not saying it will move down there, but we are in a bearish trend and a negative sentiment. Massive move in US yields yesterday. There's been some auctions in the Treasury bonds. Massive move, spiked the 10-year yield spiked above almost up to 4.5%, just a fraction below it to this early morning here. And it's currently trading just below the 55 moving average and below the 440 resistance. But that was a massive move, and there is a risk higher. However, look at RSI, got rejected there at 60 threshold at first, so keep an eye on that. Have it on your screen. Will it close or be rejected at the 60 threshold, or will it close above or being rejected? That will be decisive here. If it's being rejected, then we can estimate and add, and this is what you can also do. Then say, okay, we can say, okay, if that's being rejected, that was probably a peak, and then we are seeing a setback, possibly back to 424, possibly down to around 412, 410. The 2-year, also a bit of volatility, but not that much. Hasn't opened yet. Bounced yesterday almost up to the 61.8 retracement. Maybe we'll do it today. So it's still in a negative or bearish trend and negative sentiment, no divergence, indicating we could see lower levels. But there's some strong support down here around 354, 340. On the European yields, we have the Euro 10, the Euro 10 year, excuse me, bouncing. And I had the red sets of Fibonacci. You can see it touched the 786 retracement and at 249, and then it bounced. And then we have the blue one, and so this is the correction down here. And now we're pushing higher, and I think we'll see it push towards 276. The UK currently testing this trend line here and the 61.8 retracement at 465. If it takes out the trend line, and I think we could see it push up to around 472, which is the 786 retracement. Moving on to Bitcoin, spiking lower a couple of times to just above $74,000. Maybe that is the exhaustive move, and we will see a nice bounce. But if it takes out the lows here at excuse me, 74,420, well, then I think we'll see a push below 73 down to 72, possibly lower. Ethereum dancing around or spiking down to the 1370 support. Could we see a little bit of a bounce, or will it push lower in the coming weeks? That'll be key here the next couple of days. All right, that's all for today. Have a nice day. Be careful out there. It's very volatile still, and there's still risk of some massive moves. So keep your stops tight if you're trying to trade it, and have a nice day.